You may have heard ministers saying that in July last year, NHS staff got a 4% pay rise.
Look, we have an independent pay review body for a reason. The government has looked at their recommendation, which is £1,400 or an equivalent of 4.72%, and accepted those recommendations in full.
That is, of course, just another crappy real terms pay cut on top of a whole decade of crappy real terms pay cuts. But what you might not know is that junior doctors are actually excluded from that and limited to just 2%. Think about that. After all the sacrifices they made to keep us safe during the pandemic, and with inflation running in excess of 10%, that's all the government thinks junior doctors are worth. And it gets worse. Junior doctors have suffered a massive 26% real terms pay cut since 2008. Almost half of them are now struggling to pay their rent and mortgages. And remember this, after several years of studying, they've amassed around £100,000 in debt. The government has just told us it must uncap bonuses for millionaire bankers to attract talent into the city, but it's telling junior doctors they must accept a quarter less pay. And if they won't submit, it plans to rob them of their democratic right to withdraw their labour by bringing in anti-strike legislation to force them to work against their will, allowing them to be sacked if they refuse. Isn't any wonder 45,000 junior doctors are now balloting for industrial action.
When it comes to the issue of pay, we have accepted in full the independent recommendations of the pay review bodies.
Well, let's just sit on a shelf for a moment that even Larry the cat now knows these pay review bodies are not independent.
We accepted in full the recommendations of what is an independent process, the pay review body process.
Well, is it independent?
It's hugely regrettable. Yes, it is.
But you appoint the people on that committee, don't you? And you set the parameters for the pay decisions, so it's not really independent.
The government has completely ignored the recommendations of the pay review body when it comes to junior doctors. Whilst the government wants junior doctors limited to a derisory pay award of just 2% on a multi-year pay deal, the pay review body has recommended the government consider a higher level of pay and has actually warned, if action is not taken for those under MYDs, then the relative pay positions of different groups within our overall remit will diverge significantly. We are concerned that doctors and dentists under MYDs would therefore see their pay falling relative to their peers as a result of their having agreed to a MYD. This would have a significant effect on motivation, affecting retention, productivity, and ultimately patient care. Will ultimately affect patient care. And despite the Prime Minister and members of his government telling the public this,
when it comes to the issue of pay, we have accepted in full the independent recommendations of the pay review bodies.
We accepted in full the recommendations of what is an independent process, the pay review body process.
The government has entirely accepted, the independent pay review body's recommendations.
The government has ignored the pay review body's recommendations when it comes to junior doctors. The junior doctors' demands are simple. They're just asking the government to reverse the massive pay cuts their profession has endured over the last decade and a half, for pay to be restored to 2008 levels.
Mr. Speaker, we've always been clear that we want to have constructive dialogue with the unions.
Again, not true. The government has refused to negotiate with junior doctors on pay, leaving them with no choice but to withdraw their labour. The government has exploited the goodwill of junior doctors for long enough, and now they're saying enough is enough. Our junior doctors have always been there for us. Now let's be there for them by standing shoulder to shoulder with them as they ballot for strike action.